So, good morning, everyone. We'll begin with the reflections on universal well-being. May I abiding well-being in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may I maintain well-being in myself. May everyone abide in well-being, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may they maintain well-being in themselves. May all be released from all suffering, and may they not be parted from the good fortune they have attained. When they act upon intention, all beings are the owners of their action, and inherit its results. Their future is born from such action, companion to such action, and results will be their home. All actions with intention, be they skillful or harmful, of such acts they will be the heirs. So, good morning, everyone. I want to continue to share Acharya Mun's encounter with this hypercritical naga. Say fault-finding naga. So if you weren't here 2 days ago, I'll give a quick summary. So Acharya Mun went to practice in a cave where there was this naga or dragon who really looked for faults in whoever came to the cave. And so as Acharya Mun was there practicing, he would constantly criticize Acharya Mun, saying, oh, you walk too loudly, or you breathe too noisily, or you're just really insensitive. You're just not a good monk. He'd just be constantly looking for faults. And when Acharya Mun used his kind of meditation, samadhi, to kind of observe this naga, this dragon, always see it watching him, looking at him with this kind of very mean look. It's kind of, trying to look for some problem about him. And so Acharya Mun, after being there for some time, began to really respond to this naga because he actually wanted to help him. So this is what he said. So he first began by saying this fault-finding really will cause you a lot of affliction, and that he doesn't have any resentment towards him. He's forgiven him for any of the things or the thoughts that he has in terms of fault-finding. And he also not only forgives him, but also has tried his best to be considerate, to soften his steps, to be even more careful around the naga. And he sees that this naga just keeps suffering. So he says, I'm here to share something with you because I care about you and want you to not suffer so much. So he's very straightforward. And so he continues on and says, I apologize for speaking so candidly about the principles of Dhamma, but my intentions are good. Nothing malicious is intended in my remarks, regardless of what misconceptions you may have. Since the very beginning of my stay here, I have tried to do everything in a careful, restrained manner. For I know that this is your home, and I am concerned that my presence here may inconvenience you. Although I am well aware that you're an individual who delights in looking for things to criticize, I can't seem to avoid being seen in a disparaging light. I myself experience genuine contentment, unaffected even by your constant criticism. By worry, the repercussions of your dogged pursuit of evil will be extremely unpleasant for you. I did not come here in search for I'm not come here in search of wickedness or evil, being quite sure that everything I do and say emanates from a pure heart. I have no fear that my actions will incur any unpleasant moral consequences. As soon as intelligent people begin to understand the difference between secular and spiritual matters, they tend to appreciate virtuous conduct, admiring wholesome, meritorious actions performed for the sake of peace and happiness. From ages past, the wise have always taught living beings to feel good about being virtuous. So why do you adhere to your notion that it's all right to strip yourself of virtue and wallow in evil? You seem to detest virtue so dreadfully that you can't be bothered to reflect on your own vices. Although I won't be experiencing the dire consequences that await you, I still feel fear for your miserable state. You must stop thinking in ways that are harmful, but that mean intent behind your actions has the power to deprive you of your moral value. Such undesirable consequences bring unimaginable torment, are what I fear more than anything else in the world. The whole world dreads old age, sickness, and death, but I don't fear them nearly so much as I fear evil and its attendant consequences. Right, this mind of always looking for other people's faults really is a lot of suffering. And so Ajahn Mun just points it out, saying, why do you continue to do that, causing yourself so much harm? And it's actually a little bit sad, but I think actually growing up in our society now, maybe it's always this case, but at least I find it the case when I grew up here in Silicon Valley, that our education often is one where we actually learn to look for fault in other people. Oftentimes we're competing, trying to be number one. And so how do we give ourselves a sense that we're number one, we're doing the right things? Because we look for the fault in other people and we go, I'm better than that. And so I'm somehow, good. But this is actually a lot of suffering. People with kleshas tend to eschew, or that's afflictions, tend to eschew or avoid or reject spiritual principles, preferring instead the things that the spiritual teachings prescribe or do not allow. So ordaining as a Buddhist monk is to practice the Dhamma Vinaya, requires us to go an agonizing character transformation. Right? As we cultivate, we have to change the habit I just talked about being in school and in education, and learning this mindset of competing and realizing actually, as I become a monk, I have to change my mentality. And honestly, it's quite agonizing because it's almost like part of myself is dying. Something that I have nurtured for decades now has to be let go of. Even though I knew how difficult it would be to oppose the kleshas, the afflictions, I nonetheless felt compelled to join the monkhood and endure the severe hardship. The extreme discomfort caused by constantly opposing the kleshas, that's what makes practice so difficult. But if we desire to transcend kama and the defiling kleshas that create it, we must endure such torment. For kleshas always steadfastly resist the teachings of the Lord Buddha. I've come here to practice, living in this cave like a worthless social outcast, solely because I fear evil and its consequences. I did not come here to harm or trouble anyone, nor do I feel contempt for any living being. I respect them all as friends who live, also subject to the laws of karma, and who are thus all of equal intrinsic value. I dedicate the merit of my actions equally to all beings, with the hope that they may live in contentment wherever they may be. I have never taken an arrogant attitude that I am a human being ordained as a Buddhist monk and therefore superior to my companions in birth, aging, sickness, and death. And that's also another really important principle. As we begin on the spiritual path, we don't end up developing a spiritual pride. Somehow thinking, oh, I'm a monk, so therefore I'm purer than other people, creating walls and barriers. Or maybe I'm a meditator, and so therefore I'm, more aware and therefore kind of superior to those around me. And they start looking down on people who, quote unquote, don't meditate or don't have a spiritual practice. Right? That's letting pride slip in. You too exist within the sphere of karma, so you ought to humbly reflect on your own faults. Criticizing others merely without proper consideration will never bring you good results. It merely piles up the ill effects of bad karma, which then linger on indefinitely. You should feel dismayed by your errant behavior and drop this dangerous practice. Only then can you hope to become a good individual with a chance for a better, happier birth in the future. Then your mean, angry heart will soften, and you can avoid being engulfed in misery forever. All living beings in the universe, from humans and animals to devas, brahmas, and yakas, cherish happiness and loathe suffering. They do not have an aversion for dharma, simply because they can't yet put it into practice. Dharma has always been the quintessential nature of the universe. Those beings who are in a position to practice Dhamma find great satisfaction in it. For instance, human beings. Their state of birth makes them well suited to the practice of Dhamma. You yourself are a living being who is fully capable of distinguishing between good and bad, and thus choosing what's most beneficial for you. So why do you do just the opposite? I am puzzled that you seem to revel in those things which the wise abhor, while scorning those which the wise applaud. You know about dukkha and you hate it, yet you strive to produce the very causes that bring you great unhappiness and discomfort. The wise tell us that our efforts to find unhappiness, to find fault with others, produce consequences that cause greater and greater unhappiness. So I'll say that again. The wise tell us that our efforts to find faults with others produce consequences that cause greater and greater unhappiness. Exactly what you shamelessly do all the time. You may not be interested, but although I am fully aware of your despicable thoughts, I've always forgiven you. I'm not angry or offended, but I do feel sorry for you. Thus I've decided to tell you the plain truth. Should it prove useful for you, I shall be happy for your sake. I receive no unpleasant consequences for your thoughts, for I'm not the one who engages in them. All I experience are peace, serenity, and loving compassion that have long been my heart's abode. Okay, so now I'll just stop there and say, you can see Ajahn Mun's attitude, right, to somebody who finds fault with him. No rejection, no resentment, no vengeance, no sense of superiority, but, respect, care, compassion, actually even rejoicing, wishing that person could find another way to be, not caught in their suffering. And also Ajahn Mun doesn't lose his contentment, doesn't lose his well-being, which I think, at least for myself, often can happen. Somebody criticizes me, and because somehow my identity is caught up with other people's views of me, I start to get afflicted. Oh, that person really doesn't like me, or that one person looks down on me. And then I start to think, worry. So Ajahn Mun's a very good example to say, you know what? You find fault with me. I look at my own heart and I stay in the divine abodes. I'm happy, peaceful, kind, rejoicing, compassionate, and serene. Okay, so then today, again, maybe this is a good place to reflect, because I know fault finding, at least for myself, is a deep habit. So maybe we can just catch ourselves if we find ourselves finding fault with those around us or those in the world. And when we find that, just to relax and say, may they be well. May they find a way out of their affliction. And if people fault find about us, same thing. We just let it go. We don't have to let it, you could say, disturb our heart. Okay, so let's begin our 3 steps, 1 bow. Om Lai San Bui Pai.